What happens if you don't shut it down? What are those costs and ramifications to mom and pop, to the economy, and to the economic engine by keeping the illusion of the Federal Reserve alive? The illusion is that they're there for mom and pop. They are not. They are there to stop bank runs, pure and simple.
If you buy a house right now, there are major pitfalls in doing so. But regardless, if you guys make it through this next session, you will understand the math. And that doesn't matter if in your market it's crashing or going up right now. It doesn't matter if it's next year or this year. What you guys have to understand is the simple math on how real estate works. Happy one day after Christmas and 2 days into Hanukkah. You guys, we're going to go over multiple things today. Obviously, we're going to go over the labor market and the massive amount of job losses that have taken place in 2024 so far. We're also going to go in briefly to the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. And then we're going to end this video by doing a thorough analysis on the housing market. I'm going to remind you guys how to use the math to potentially, and it's probably impossible, find a good deal. Before we dig into this video, we're going to start with Mitch. Mitch read a comment on our last video that really struck a lot of passion in him, and it was not the smartest comment, but he went on to do a report that I've seen so far. He's trying to condense this, guy's 102 pages. Literally one comment. That's kind of a little bit crazy. This man in the last 24 hours put 102 pages together. So I want to start there. Mitch, can you tell us, you look like you're ready to get someone. But can you tell us what the comment said? And then I'm going to flash on the screen right now the report that you made.
Well, it was just a comment that the Federal Reserve is self funding. And I read a couple other comments, but when I did the research as to where that comment came from, it came from the Federal Reserve. And that just started me going down a rabbit trail. And I went to the Federal Reserve and I started looking and saying, okay, what's the structure of the Federal Reserve? Well, the first 9 pages that you're looking at is the structure of the Federal Reserve, and it makes the Department of Homeland Security look thin. There's 23,000 employees inside of this. And I did go through here and I took out the employees' names because we're not discussing the employees, we're discussing structure. And I'm certain there's smart people there, but the truth of the matter is those smart people will never have the chance to rise to the top because what you're looking at is a structure of obfuscation. It's intentionally opaque, just like the Department of Homeland Security with regard to FEMA. They can move money from bucket to bucket. Well, why would you create something of this magnitude with that many layers, that many attorneys, that many assistants to the assistants to the assistants, but for obfuscation? And then it starts getting into the details as to how the structure is created, what they're doing. It gets down into the idea of inflation. And the only way I can really describe it is that the Federal Reserve and the central appraisal districts are the purveyors of inflation. And that is contrary to another one of the comments that said, well, but the Fed is there to help the economy. No, that is not what the evidence shows. And as I've said before, in truth, the Federal Reserve has never been on the right side for mom and pop. They've been on the right side to protect bank runs. And my position is that the bank run should have occurred. And due to the rule of 72, the compounding effect of that debt has literally done exactly what the rule of 72 said it would do. It has doubled up every 7 years. The Federal Reserve and the central appraisal districts are both fraudulently inducing fraud. They're fraudulently inducing the inflation. And that is the problem. And when you go through this document, you begin to see the pattern as to how it's actually done. And that's through all those layers that you're scrolling through right now. This is a huge problem.
Can we give the viewers an idea of when that document might be completed so we can add that link to the video?
Um, Probably 2 more days. I mean, there's an awful lot in there, and I brought it down from 230 pages, so it's almost 100 pages down. I'm doing the best I can to make it as quick a read to get to the point as possible. I left from the research. So if I went to Wikipedia, I literally left the link to Wikipedia that said, if you want, if you, the viewer, reader, want to do more research, you can just click on the link. But it's a large rabbit trail. I'm trying to get down to the point that says and proves clearly that the Federal Reserve is a purveyor of inflation. That is the bottom line here. So all this nonsense when somebody says, well, it's this is what we're being told on the website for the Federal Reserve.gov. Okay, that's great. Well, Denton Central Appraisal District, second paragraph, second line, literally says we adhere to USPAC, Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice. No, they don't. And neither does the Federal Reserve. They're not there to protect mom and pop. And the idea that they're self-funding is just as much nonsense because give or take, that's roughly call it $2 billion a year. Somebody says, well, they're self-funding. No, they're not. That money would be in the pockets of mom and pop, but for the existence of the Federal Reserve. They make their money by holding assets, US treasuries and mortgage-backed securities. And those US treasuries and mortgage-backed securities are not marked to market. There's a huge gap in their balance sheets. What they're telling the world, well, these are our assets. No, they're not. Those are assets on the book, not the value of the assets. Two different things. So it's an illusion. It's obfuscation. We have all these layers. We don't know where the hell the money is going. We can't find it. We can't follow it because of all these layers. And as I asked in the document, could it be that the world's largest shell game is in fact the Federal Reserve? Go ahead, follow the money. Let me know how that works out for you.
These rhetorical questions,
Yes,
Mitch.
yes, of course.
Speaking of the Federal Reserve and how, the Federal Reserve, at least I've seen some comments, the Federal Reserve is lifting up the economy. The Federal Reserve is supporting the economy. This article came out a couple days ago on the 24th. The full list of major US companies slashing staff this year, including Meta, ExxonMobil, and Boeing. And I'm just going to skim through this just to look at the biggest ones to remind you guys kind of what happened. Now, the US biggest privately owned company, Cargill, is cutting thousands of jobs, slashing roughly 5% of its workforce. Total amount of people they have is 164,000 strong workforce. So obviously, if that company goes down, it's going to have a massive impact. Just one company going out of business. Let's move on here. Microchip Tech is closing in an Arizona factory. If that's near Surprise, Arizona, that's not good for the housing market. I have covered Surprise, Arizona 2 times, and I've showed you guys the overwhelming amount of speculation for the housing market there. Now, the closure is expected to affect about 500 jobs from the company's 22,000. Now, the end of this firing spree, if you will, is going to end September 2025, which means 2025 is going to be full of layoffs as well. Now, publishing giant Hearst, is that Hearst magazine, trims staff. So the Hollywood Reporter said it in a November 21st report. This is signs that the media continues to take an absolute beating, probably because they're filthy liars and lying to the public. Boeing starts issuing layoff notices to 400 workers amid plans for a 10% ouch global workforce cut. Now that 10% cut is of its 170,000 people. It's a very huge company, 170,000 people. That is worldwide, you guys. They're going to have more cuts going into 2025. Exxon is cutting nearly 400 jobs after Pioneer mergers. The cuts represent almost 20% of Pioneer's pre-merger workforces. AMD is laying off roughly 4% of its workforce. In addition to that, Chegg is cutting 21% of its employees as AI search destroys its business. 23andMe is cutting 40%, you guys, 40% of its staff. Bed Bath & Beyond plans to cut 20% of its workforce. I can't believe this company is still around. And also, Big Lots and Party City are closing down thousands of stores. That is a fact. Now, Meta added to the 20,000 plus people it's laid off since 2022. So this is just basically saying that Meta is probably going to continue the layoffs. Now, TikTok is laying off employees as part of the content moderation changes. This is interesting. Apparently, in a few weeks, America is not going to be able to use TikTok anymore. That's very interesting. We've been hearing about that for a long time, Mitch. PwC is cutting 1,800 of its employees. Nike's up to $2 billion cost-cutting plan will involve severances. So that's good. So people won't be just laid off. They'll also get a small severance. Google laid off hundreds more workers in 2024. So this is going on to basically how they're continuing to lay off people. And they've laid off, the tech giant laid off thousands throughout 2023, beginning with a 6% reduction, which was about 12,000 people. That hasn't stopped, y'all. Now, Discord also laid off 170 employees. This is a big one, guys. City will cut 20,000 people from its staff as part of a corporate overhaul. 20,000 people. Think about that 1 second. 20,000 people from City, their jobs are gone. Amazon owned Twitch also announced job cuts as well. BlackRock, is planning to cut 3% of its staff. Funny that they're like the last ones, right? And that's only about 600 people from its 20,000 person workforce. In addition to that, Rent the Runaway is slashing 10% of its corporate jobs as part of restructuring. They're using the word restructuring, but really what we should say is Federal Reserve fraud, greed, corruption, and things of that nature. But they don't. They use restructuring. Unity Software is eliminating 25% of its workforce. eBay to cut, I didn't know eBay was still around. I'm kidding. eBay to cut 1,000 different jobs. Microsoft is reportedly cutting 650 more jobs from its Xbox division alone. So more job cuts coming there. Salesforce is cutting 700 employees across the company. The Wall Street Journal reported. iRobot is laying off around 350 employees. UPS, this is a big one, will cut 12,000 jobs in 2024 as more signs of a strong, resilient economy. Interesting. I guess that's how this works. PayPal CEO Alexis announced that the company would lay off. Again, PayPal laying off 9% of its workforce, affecting about 2,500 employees. Morgan Stanley is also trimming wealth management division by hundreds of staffers. Expedia Group is cutting more than 8% of its workforce. Sony, is laying off 900 workers as well. Let's not forget IBM, tens of thousands, if I'm not mistaken, in just the last 6 months. IBM cut staff in marketing and communications. Look at IBM, you guys. They have been doing massive amounts of layoffs. Where's the auto though, Mitch? Guess we just got to be patient. Amazon is laying off hundreds in its cloud division and yet another round of cuts this year. And again, that's just one division of Amazon. Apple as well has cut 700 employees across its self-driving car display. So this is just one department. Tesla laid off over 10% of its workforce. There's some of the auto layoffs. Peloton announced it's reducing its staff by 15% as the CEO steps down. Indeed is cutting off, that's not good, 1,000 workers after laying off 2,200 in 2023. Walmart is axing hundreds of corporate jobs, another hit to Walmart. And Under Armour is slashing an unspecified number of jobs, incurring $22 million in just severance costs alone. That's pretty crazy. Pixar cuts about 175 people and pivot back to future films. And hopefully they'll stay in their lane and stop injecting political nonsense into children's movies and cartoons. Lucid Motors is slashing around 400 jobs. And again, moving into 2025, a lot of people expect a tremendous amount of turmoil. John Deere is laying off 600 employees as well. Dell is cutting sales jobs and new focus on AI products. And once those products are up and running, I'm sure there will be a lot more job loss as well, because we know that AI appears to be replacing people. Good job, guys. Paramount Global, 15%. Cisco announced 2 rounds of layoffs this year. Thousands of people laid off from Cisco, upward of 4,000 jobs, are saying right here. GoPro as well. Shell. I mean, at this point, Goldman Sachs laid off more than 1,300 workers. And the stock market's at all-time highs. How does that work? Verizon is laying off 4,800 US employees. I don't even know how do you lay off? General Motors is laying off about 1,700 employees in Kansas. I mean, I'm trying to be done with this. Flagstar Bank cuts 700 jobs, so there's some bank layoffs. Visa is reportedly laying off around 1,400 people this year. Nissan said it's going to slash 9,000 jobs globally. And again, you guys, this isn't over yet. NASA JPL plans to cut about 5% of its workforce. Wells Fargo to cut 700 people. I mean, this goes on. CVS filed a whole bunch of notices. CVS is in here. Party City is gone. Can you give us what your personal outlook is for 2025 in that we got a new president and a team? Hope they've said that don't worry about jobs. We're going to make jobs. But we're also going to cut jobs from the government. So what do you see happening in 2025 with the job market, Mitch? And we'll get into the Department of Government Efficiency in a minute, but tell us your outlooks on specifically 2025 and how you believe that the labor market is going to play out here.
Well, before we dance down that road, so you mean to tell me that The stock market and the market itself, the economy, is not as healthy as the Federal Reserve said it is. Isn't that interesting? We've been pounding the table on this and it's starting to come out now. So that statement that the Federal Reserve has been lying to the public all the way through this is just more evidence that the Federal Reserve should be shut down. And the direct answer to your question is more of the same, which is the problems in terms of the layoffs are now starting to bubble massively, and it will continue. And that is because, in truth, the economic situation of mom and pop is extremely weak. And that is why the Federal Reserve has come out and lowered interest rates when in reality, you do that in a weak economy to stimulate the economy. And then when this document that I just am almost done, I mean, it take a few more days, is finished, you can go through it yourself and see how all these things are tied at the hip. So the stock market is going to get weak because the revenues that the stocks can generate, as you've just seen by that list of companies, is getting weaker by the day. And that shows you that the economy isn't healthy. Over and above that, for what it's worth, and I don't want to lump all these companies because every company kind of stands on its own. I don't want to lump them into one category. But isn't it interesting that it takes an awful lot of people to create a false narrative? If you look at the Federal Reserve itself, that's 23,000 employees painting a false narrative. If you look at some of these companies, Meta, they're painting a false narrative, and they do so by hiring more and more employees that get dragged into something that they don't even understand what's going on around them. By the time this document is done and we're ready to put it online, it'll still be rough at that time. But the point of the matter is, anybody that reads that document, there's a very high probability they will end up knowing more about the Federal Reserve than the employees at the Federal Reserve themselves. So if that is available and that research is available, then it's clear. And if the employees don't know about these items, well, then they're participating, be it willfully or unwillfully, they are participating in a narrative that simply isn't true. And that point comes right back to it's not the idea of the necessity to shut down the Federal Reserve. That's not the question on the table. The question on the table is what happens if you don't shut it down? What are those costs and ramifications to mom and pop, to the economy, and to the economic engine by keeping the illusion of the Federal Reserve alive? The illusion is that they're there for mom and pop. They are not. They are there to stop bank runs, pure and simple. So coming back to your main question, Travis, this all comes back to mom and pop. The treasuries held by the Federal Reserve, the mortgage backed securities are deemed assets by the Federal Reserve. They are not because they're not marked to market. Nobody knows the real value. And then I couldn't even find the reserves as if they had an appropriate value to begin with. So you're supposed to have another level of reserves to offset potential risk. Couldn't even find that. So the point of the matter is, these things are all taking money away from the economy. The Federal Reserve's cost of operation is about 2.2 billion. All these other entities that you just went down that list, they all have a cost of operations. If they're not able to generate revenue, the revenues are coming down. Well, all the people that they hired to create the narrative in terms of increasing their stock value, obviously those people are going to get fired. Will they be able to maintain their stock value? No, because the revenues are down. So all these things are hooked at the hip. The problem is the Federal Reserve is literally working against mom and pop. And it's not just them. They're on the federal side. On the local side, which are your taxing entities, your school districts that own the central appraisal districts, they're doing the exact same thing. They're creating a fraud. Well, house values, just like the stock market values, will come down. These things are directly correlated. House values will come down because mom and pop can't pay the freight. It will crash. Now, to what level will the houses crash? In certain areas, you're already down 15% this year. Do the central appraisal districts recognize that? No, because they are committing fraud by ignoring uniform standards of professional appraisal practice. What I'm trying to draw is the picture that you have two entities, federal and local, both of which are creating fraud on a mass scale. That's the picture I'm trying to show, and that's what's in this document.
Well, and Mitch, that fraud suffocates mom and pop, which again, and we keep saying this, is the lifeline to the economy. 70% of GDP is spending money from consumers. So if you keep hitting us, you keep beating us up, it's gonna implode. Now, I love how you really got down to the math on it. It takes a lot of people to lie, and it takes a lot of people to create a narrative. Not only do they have Federal Reserve and 23,000 employees, they also have the media lying to people. And it's also interesting that you pointed out on our last video, and I think we read this in the article from Zero Hedge, that there was roughly 400 economic scholars at the Federal Reserve. So in other words, they got some really good liars that maybe they don't even know they're lying. Maybe they just realize that they're useful idiots. Maybe they don't even realize they're useful idiots. But one thing is for sure, that's an awfully lot of people lying to us, Mitch. And you want to know what's also interesting is it's working on many millions of Americans. Because again, they can't escape that narrative because when they go home, they turn on the news stations. And I'm not going to call any news stations out. They get some of the same BS. And so the fraud and the narrative, it keeps going. But the reality is this, Mitch, and correct me if I'm wrong. The markets, the stock market would all, and the housing market would already be dead right now at the end of 2024 if it was not for fraud. And what I mean by that is government money printing inflation, mortgage backed securities, or rather the bank term funding program that happened over the weekend in 2023 in March. So isn't it fair to say the market's already dead, Mitch? Because as soon as you remove the deficit spending, it all comes crashing down. Am I wrong there, sir?
The deficit spending, with a little bit of luck, will not continue when the truth is known. The truth is in this document. The truth is in all the documents that are on the website, the DCAT section of the website, because we've proven how they're committing fraud. We've lined it all up. It's irrefutable fact. It's not up for debate. They can say, well, we didn't do it or we adhere to USPAP, but clearly they're lying. Well, with regard to the Federal Reserve, you have to understand that the assets that they hold are US treasuries. The assets they hold are mortgage backed securities. This is paper chasing paper. There's no real assets behind these mortgage backed securities. They will tell you there is. But if a mortgage backed security, which is comprised of, let's say, for the sake of conversation, between 100 and 1,000 different homes at one time, you really think you're going to go foreclose on 100 or 1,000? You can't get to the asset under the security. It's paper chasing paper. So the point of the matter is, why is the Federal Reserve doing what they're doing? Well, A, it's to
Mm,
protect the banks, to stop the banks from getting into bank runs, which should have gone broke in 2008, 2007. But that didn't happen. So nonetheless, we have these problems, and that participation of the Federal Reserve is what has in fact created the fraud. By not letting these banks fail and not calling assets mark to market true value, you create inflation. When the Federal Reserve creates that inflation, they use cheaper dollars. Well, cheaper dollars are, in fact, the inflation. Inflation is a tax on your dollar, taking your money and lowering your purchasing power. If A
mm,
equals B and B equals C, then A must equal C. The inflation is a tax, it's your purchasing power, and the Federal Reserve is using your purchasing power to pay back debts that are covered for the banks at a lower dollar value. They're doing it on purpose. They're creating the inflation on purpose, just like the central appraisal districts are creating the inflation on purpose. That's clear. It's irrefutable. They've created 21.2 trillion roughly in the last 5 years of overvaluation, with a resulting of roughly 450 billion in taxes in the last in 2024 paid by mom and pop. So these are real numbers. This is real math. This is real inflation. And it's all truly created and self induced by these entities that should not
yeah.
exist.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna throw in bonds in there. If you guys are voting yes on bonds, stop immediately. Stop voting yes on bonds. And the reason I say that is you don't know what's in those bonds, and we don't even have the math on the last year's bonds and the years before that. And another thing, Mitch, not only the localized bond debt, which is disgusting, it's what's going on now, like with mortgage-backed securities and really any asset, is it's like a hyperinflation because they are allowed to leverage up assets. So I'm wondering if my house is worth $300,000, how much debt was generated off of my house because the banks decided to leverage that debt up? Is it a $1.2 million in debt from a $300,000 house?
10 to 1.
Huh.
Mortgage
So three
mortgage-backed securities, 10 to 1.
We gotta stop, man. I mean, we gotta st most people, they just want a roof over their head. They wanna be safe. They wanna own something. Enough of Wall Street getting in the house market. We're gonna go into the house market, but let's just briefly go into now Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency, also known as DOGE. Let me throw this article up right now. So, again, I'm gonna reiterate, this is my take now on politicians, okay, or the government. Guilty until proven innocent, and absolutely no one is a savior. So we're gonna talk back and forth, Mitch and I, about Elon Musk and whether or not he has the potential to turn us into a socialist Weimar Republic, or is he going to stick to his guns and bring us back into a free market? We don't know. He has the ability to do both. Now, this article came out yesterday. This is titled Massive Layoffs, Dissolving Agencies, and Gutting Regulations. Here's how Elon Musk's Doge could crash the economy. So far, so good. This is great, but I have my concerns. I'll address that. The U.S. economy could be in danger because of the aggressive methods to be adapted by Elon Musk, which is just eliminating fraud. That's it. Is that an aggressive measure, eliminating fraud, or is that just the right thing to do? Comment below. Let me know what you think. When they take up the office of the Department of Government Efficiency as soon as Donald Trump becomes president in January of 2025, according to a report, the Doge is more like a pipe dream and does not even have strong federal powers on its own without Trump or the Congress signing off on their calls. Good thing that Trump is president then and that they have Congress. I don't know. Is that how that works? Is Doge and Trump's strategies too aggressive? I love how this is reading. Doge strategies of massive layoffs and dissolving federal agencies to cut down federal spending is already spreading panic among American employees. No, it's not.
Mm-mm.
Maybe federal employees, maybe bankers. For me and you, I'm like, yes, let's go. What panic? And why do I care about them? They've been ripping us off. They've been creating fraud. They've been stealing my children's future. And if this were to become a reality, it could also send the US economy crashing. That's what we want, but we want to make sure we're safe through that, right? The math says it's going to happen, or we're going to turn into a socialist country. So either way, it's super bad. And I don't think Americans will allow it to become too much more socialist than it already has. And it can also begin to hurt the US stock market. Good. Moreover, Trump tariffs may also add to the pressure of the US economy soon enough. However, it is understandable the federal programs like Social Security and Medicare are untouchable without causing massive political backlash. Tinker with them, Trump could face its repercussions in a political aspect, which they may not risk at this point. Leaving aside the mandatory spending, it leaves room for discretionary spending of about 1.2 trillion for Doge cuts, and just a little bit of that money can go a long way in Western North Carolina and Tennessee. If you guys don't know what's going on there, watch the playlist that says testimonial for Hurricane Helene. It is absolutely devastating and eye-opening. It is history taking place right now, proof positive that the government is illusion of protection and safety. But really, what it creates is division and uncertainty and fear. I know that Elon Musk it appears he's about business, it appears he's a pioneer for mom and pop, he's capitalist, all things that are great. But I also remember him saying we need 0% interest rates, keep printing money, quantitative tightening is bad. And he's got points there. But what I'm saying, Mitch, is in my eyes, he's no savior. There are massive problems that are probably going to be happening well past his life. I'm worried that people don't realize that if they don't do this the right way and they just print money like every other president has just printed money, that can actually turn the US into the next Weimar Republic, can create even a socialized dynamic. So there's a probability of that. Can you tell me, Mitch, because I know you are a huge, supporter, pretty big supporter of Musk. Why should the viewers and I, after decades of being lied to, why should we believe that Musk can change or will change anything?
You shouldn't. The reality of the situation is that he is a person who's been put in this position along with Vivek. And whether it's Musk or Mr. XYZ, Mr. XYZ must understand what the truth is. And as far as I know, the documents that we've got on DCAD and now this document that we've got on the Federal Reserve, which a lot of that stuff in this document, Federal Reserve, has been out there. That's not that. I mean, I've got one that goes back to 2011. Well, the bottom line is that if these problems are known, then for what purpose were they not addressed? Who's putting money in their pocket on the backs of mom and pop? So Mr. XYZ has to come along and say, enough of the fraud. We're going to unwind this, which is what we've been saying. I use the term workout because that's the term used to walk down bad mortgages or bad debts. It's a workout. That's what has to be done, but it has to be done at a very quick pace because, as you were saying, what will happen if that doesn't happen is when you go to print money to try to continue the cover up, you end up in the Weimar Republic, but that's a surety of a Greater Depression. That is a surety of 35% unemployment, which is not necessary. Just simply tell the truth. But over and above that, that person picked up a narrative, and that narrative is a false narrative. And we know that it's false for multiple reasons. First of all, on the federal side, give or take, there's 1.1 million that every household in the United States, all 143 million, owe in federal debt. That's US national federal debt and unfunded liabilities. Then on the local side, there's roughly, call it 250,000. It's a little bit more, but call it 250,000 that every household owes. Combination, give or take, 1.38 million over a 25-year amortization effective immediately this morning. That would take $9,000 in additional income for every single household to have in their pocket today to pay this off. This cannot be done. Therefore, the narrative taken by the person who wrote the article, and I'm not picking on the person, again, it could be Mr. or Ms. XYZ, it doesn't matter. The point of the matter is when you make a statement, you've got to be able to back it up with math when you're talking to the public and say, well, this is why we made this statement. All they did is they picked up a narrative in multiple cases. They pick up a narrative from the Federal Reserve because it's right on their website, or they pick up a narrative from the central appraisal districts that says, well, we adhere to uniform standards of professional appraisal practice. In both cases, neither one of them is true, making the narrative a false narrative. And therein lies the problem. The fraud that has been induced upon mom and pop at the hands of these entities, and that would also include the Department of Homeland Security through FEMA. They exist, but they don't perform a service. They exist, but they don't do anything that impacts mom and pop's lives other than taking mom and pop's money and putting it and transferring it into their pocket. So you have multiple layers of fraud. And the proof of the pudding for Mr. Musk is in what he actually does. It's not in what people say. It's in what it's occurred, what happens. Can he eliminate the fraud? And if you eliminate the fraud and you tell the people the truth, this is what has happened to you over the years. This is exactly what we're doing. And as far as I know, the documents that we've put up on Denton Central Appraisal District, this doesn't exist in the public realm. We're pushing it as hard as we can. But that's your proof positive of the fraud being committed. Not up for debate. It's factual. It's their documents. It's government documents. It's the Central Appraisal District's documents. The Federal Reserve, what this document that Travis, that you have, that's Federal Reserve documents. We're just looking at the math and saying, what you're saying doesn't tie to the math. Therefore, you're lying. Well, Musk and Vivek have a job to do, which is unwind the fraud. It's unwind the lie. It's not to say that there isn't decent departments inside of the Federal Reserve. It isn't to say that there isn't decent people. Problem is they can't rise to the top. And based on the math that I've run, give or take, about 78% of the employees could walk out the door and we, the public, would be perfectly fine tomorrow morning. So if we're going to be perfectly fine tomorrow morning, then for what purpose do they exist? And then, Travis, you went through a list of people that are press related that are doing mass layoffs. Well, is that because the narrative that they painted has fallen apart? Proof positive, it's fallen apart. Therefore, well, we don't need the people to create the narrative. Okay, you're fired. You see, all these things are connected. They're all tied at the hip. There's an old saying, oh, what a tangled web they weave when they practice to deceive. And that is now coming unwound.
Okay. Well, speaking about the web of deceit, what I want to do now is let's transition to the viewers to the housing market. And I'm going to show you guys how to use the math so that you know whether or not you're going to get a great deal, whether or not you should buy, and basically understand that if you buy a house right now, there are major pitfalls in doing so. But regardless, if you guys make it through this next session, you will understand the math. And that doesn't matter if in your market it's crashing or going up right now. It doesn't matter if it's next year or this year. What you guys have to understand is the simple math on how real estate works. And we're going to be talking about that right now as it pertains to your primary residence. Quick update on my own personal goals of buying a house. Yes, I've been looking for the last 2.5, almost 3 years, but 2.5 years for the home of my dreams. Okay. I'm willing to settle a little bit on the price if it's a home of my dreams and I still get a great deal. Now, what I've been trying to explain to you guys is I've pretty much put my overwhelming desire to buy a house on the back burner. And what I've started to do is enjoy my life, support my community, and things like that. So purchasing a house right now isn't a top priority. Supporting my family and my own life and my community is. Now, having said that, I'm hoping, okay, to buy a house in February. Mitch, sit down. Okay. My viewers know, you know this, in February, but I'm not going to settle. What is important to me is cash flow and wedge, even though it's my primary resident. Okay. I've already lost everything one time. It took me 9 years to rebound because I had a foreclosure, a repo, a $100,000 tax lien, and a bankruptcy in 2009. And I do not want to drag myself out of the gutter for 9 years again to get where I'm at today. So I'm comfortable. In fact, I'm proud of myself for renting because remember, you guys, my purchasing power is strong enough. I could go buy a house right now. I'm choosing not to because I'm looking for the math to make sense. Let me start by showing you how to price your market. If you're an agent, you can do this. If you're not an agent, you can request your agent do this, but I'm going to put the area that I'm looking in, which is Kingwood. You guys know that I've been sticking with one metro area as to not provide any confusion. And what I want to do is I only want to look at comps. A comp is a sold home. And I want to look at comps in 2022, which was the peak of my market, basically. Okay. So I'm putting in Kingwood for the city, and I only go to sold. I only want to look at sold properties for that date range, which again is in 2022. And you see, I'm putting the date ranges right here, which is going to in turn give me 516 comps. Let me show the results. So again, in 2022, 516 homes sold in this metro area. You guys will do the same thing in the metro areas that you're wanting to purchase in, and then you condense that down to a subdivision. I'm just showing you guys the city. So I'm going to select all of the comps. I'm going to hit stats and I'm going to hit tabular, and this is going to automatically calculate what the average price per square foot was in Kingwood in 2022, which was $148. Now this allows me to be equipped in my home purchasing journey. Okay, so $148 in 2022. Now I go back here and I only want to see active listings in Kingwood now that I have $148 for 2022. Okay, so I'm going to go to active listings. By the way, there's 119. This is probably the most amount of listings that you guys have seen in Kingwood in 2.5 years, or at least since I've been doing this. Okay, so here's 119 active listings in Kingwood. All I'm going to do, okay, in this column, I'm going to organize it by price per square foot. And I can see immediately that there are several properties listed for under $120. That was my original goal. But the first one's 111, 112, 114, 115. Do y'all see that? And from here, I can start analyzing these properties and analyzing their subdivisions to see, are they in horrible shape? Is it a distressed sell? Is it an institutional seller? Do they have high property taxes? But look at this entire first page, okay, goes to $130 a square foot, is all listed for under the average price per square foot for 2022. Now that's one way to do this. And from there, you could start figuring out a whole bunch of stuff. Okay. And again, I have a home buying course. Please take that home buying course. It's going to equip you. And if you take these things, it doesn't matter when the housing market crashes. Trey already found a house with about 25% of equity and he purchased it. Trey has been a huge supporter of the channel and he's done well so far. It took him a long time and it took him some pain, but thank God he went through it. Now, before I go into the article, I want to show you guys one other thing. Remember, Redfin does not have the big picture. Redfin has been pushing a narrative that they create by manipulating the way that median, and it shouldn't be this way, but manipulating a way that median is calculated. Now, the first thing I want to show you is the fact that Redfin is only giving you a small piece of the pie. Now I'm going to be able to do that by showing you what Redfin is saying is going on in Houston. And then I'm going to open up the multiple listing service and I'm going to show you the truth. So Redfin says this, but the multiple listing service says this. This is active listings for Houston. You guys see this? Houston, Texas metro area. So it covers more than just the city of Houston. It's this metro area. Okay. Again, this is Redfin Weekly. And it's saying right now, you guys can see here that there are, as far as active listings, I'm under active listings. So I'm removing pending. It's saying right now, okay, and I want you to remember this, 28,904. This is Houston Association of Realtors. So this covers all of Houston. Let me show you guys how many matches for active listings. Okay, so the reality as far as active listings, this is not pending, is 54,227. In other words, you guys, according to this math, Redfin is only showing you the pieces of the pie that they want you to see. They're missing a huge portion of this, and it doesn't just stop there. When we go here and we click pending sales, let's look at all the properties that are pending right now. It's saying right now, okay, in Houston metro area, that there are 1,400, you guys see that in the bottom right, 1,474 pending sales. When I go here and I only check off the pending portion of the sales, let's see how many it's really reporting. About 10 times more. So this is saying there's 14,914 pending sales right now in Houston. Be cautious, just use the math. That is what we train you on. And I really hope you guys are doing that. Now, as far as the metro areas with the greatest month over month median sales price decline. So even with their filters and them looking at a different piece of the pie, these are still down. Now the leading metro, okay, Florida's now taken over. Congratulations, Melody. You may be winning our bet. Now, the number one metro area is Fort Lauderdale. That's down month over month 1.1%. Tampa's down 1.08%. San Diego, month over month down. San Diego is in rough shape. Austin's number 4 at 0.83. Kansas City down, interesting, 0.53 month over month. Indianapolis down 0.51. Miami, Florida also down. West Palm Beach down 0.45. Fort Worth 0.35. Philadelphia 0.35. San Francisco down 0.25, and then it ends at Orlando. And I'm going to tell you guys, those places, those hard hit places in Western North Carolina and Tennessee, they're going to have massive spikes in depreciation and foreclosures and defaults. And that's not even reporting on this list. Maybe that's the piece of the pie that they don't want to show us. Remember this, you guys, your mortgage payment, even if you have a fixed rate, it changes. It changes and has been changing over the last 4 years. If you bought your house 4 years ago, your mortgage payment blew up. Why? Not because of interest rates generally. Generally, people have a 30-year fixed rate. But remember, you guys, your property taxes and your homeowner's insurance adjust every single year. And at least here in Houston, Texas, this isn't happening to every single property, but it is happening predominantly for the people that don't care. The county officials are raising taxes 10% per year, and the amount that they're raising these values exceed what they can sell for. And if you're in Houston, Texas, you know the last 2 years property values didn't go up 10%, which means these counties are stealing our future equity. Do you guys get it? Let me show you an example. This is one active listing. You guys see this proof positive. This has been on the market for 39 days. Okay, so over a month, it's being asked to be sold for $323,000. That's actually a decent deal. That's $111 a square foot. Okay. So in other words, this is proof that so far these people cannot sell this house for $323,000. When we go to the actual tax amount, you guys look at this. It's not $323,000. It's at a market value of $363,000. That's over 10% higher than what they can sell it for. And look at this, guys. In 2022, the market value right here from 2020, that went up 10%. Okay, we peaked in 2020, okay, but it's saying it went up at 10%, and also it went up 10% in 2023. That means in the last 2 years, Houston, the tax jurisdictions are saying properties went up 20% in value. Things have been flat and going down in some areas in Houston. This is absolutely ludicrous, and I say that because owning a home these days, you guys, is super dangerous. Now, Mitch, I want to get us out of here. We've been talking for almost an hour. Last question goes to you, sir. You know, we're beating the drum here. We're trying to help people be safe by using simple math. It's not even that hard. But what's hard is the emotions. People have envy, they have jealousy, they have hate, the frustration, they have fear, they have uncertainty, they have all of these things. But I think deep down, man, is people just want to be safe and they want to be happy. I can't blame them for that. Can you discuss to the viewers, because I've told my viewer, I've told the viewers what I personally am looking for when buying a house. I've laid it all out there. It's almost impossible to find, by the way, because my list is very important, right? And I'm not settling. Under what conditions, Mitch, would you recommend someone buys a primary residence? Not talking about investment, primary residence. Typically, people live there longer. But what type of recommendation would you give, if any at all, for someone wanting to buy a house right now?
The key is the truth. So if you take into account an item that Travis didn't go through, so you have maintenance costs, you have real estate tax, you have heat, utilities, you have mortgage costs, you have, if you have a shorter term mortgage, let's say you take out a 7 year or 10 year mortgage, you have mortgage risk. Those things are a cost, they are quantifiable. The spreadsheet that I put together walks through all of the above. And then it paints the picture. Here is the truth. If your income and your spouse's income is sufficient to be able to handle the truth so that you can live comfortably in that house, then that will tell you, okay, here's a target. This makes sense for us to look at. The problem is that most people don't walk through that course of action. So, by way of example, here in my subdivision, I happen to know that give or take, there's 4 to 5 houses here with people can't afford the homes. They bought them thinking they could, but bigger homes take bigger money to maintain. And that causes a problem. In one case, the spouse lost a job. That causes another problem. So there's another case here where a realtor just bought a house. It's an expensive flip, but he's fixing the house and he thinks he's going to flip it. The odds are no, that isn't going to work, and he's going to end up losing money. So people get into these things kind of delusional. In other words, they're deluding themselves to think, well, this is going to be great, everything's going to be fine. And they never look at the what if scenario. What if this doesn't work? What if my spouse loses a job? What if the taxes, as we've said before, with regard to the central appraisal districts, when I asked Mr. Spencer, what is to stop you from raising the taxes to infinity in 2025? And then, of course, a few weeks later, the 1,400% attempted increase shows up out of Illinois. So the answer there was nothing. But can you imagine if, in the case of Houston or Kingwood, the central appraisal district said, yeah, our taxes are going up 40% in 2025. Now, what are you going to do? See, the what if scenario
Incredible.
will knock virtually every single buyer out of the market. And that's the problem. The truth is unknown because the truth is intentionally hidden. So, therefore, I don't mean this derogatory, but the sheep will follow the easy path. Don't be a sheep. Do not follow the easy path. Learn what the truth is so that you can say, okay, here's the truth as best I know it, and I am prepared for the what if scenario.
Let's show them something that's not hidden, which is this little trusty math thing right here. This is called an amortization calculator. This is how mortgages for houses work, you guys. And if you get picked on from people like, oh, you're paying your landlords this, you're paying 100% in interest. Well, look at how much it would cost in interest if you purchased a home and you got a loan for 324,000. 324 is about the average interest rate at 6.7%. You guys, your interest is 120% or more. You pay back in just interest 432,000. At least with renting, it's just 100%, which is horrible. I'm not saying it's not. But your mortgage, you pay more than 100%, you guys. And look at this, the first 5 years of making these payments, you only pay down, look at, about $20,000. So if you pay the first year, if you paid your amortization schedule down $20,000, you save all of these buckets of interest. You save over $100,000. The reason is these mortgages are front loaded with interest. So if you refinance in the first 5 years, guess what? You just ripped yourself off and you made those banks rich. So understand the debt. Okay, understand how that debt works. If you pay this down early, you will save potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I want you guys to think about that. If you buy a house right now, 120 to 130% interest. And here's the crazy thing, you guys, that's just interest. We're not even talking about property taxes and homeowners insurance or maintenance. When you add those things, that can go up to 200%. I mean, look at what Houston's doing. They're increasing property taxes by 10% of the value of your house. If you guys don't make 10% in equity, how much equity did you lose by owning that house? Think about it, you guys. And if you rent, it's pretty easy to walk away. I'm taking the difference that I'm paying right now, which is about now it's about $600, and I'm investing that. So just chill out a little bit. There's still a lot of crazy things happening. And if you really want to know, at least in my opinion, the whole meaning to all of this, the whole secret of life is just to love and to serve. Home is where the heart is. Mitch, final words, brother. And also, you guys, I think I said this already. Sorry, Mitch. I hope you guys had a great Christmas. This is the second day of Hanukkah as well. I love all of you guys. Thank you for your support. Thank you for learning. And please continue to share these videos, like these videos, access the links in the description. We have free courses. Mitch's email's there. You can't always get to it. You guys already know I can't always get to it. But I did want to say before I go that I love you guys and thank you for everything. Mitch Vexler, what do you got, brother?
I think the key word here is cautious. And what you don't often see when you're out looking to buy a home or buy anything for that matter is the ramifications of overpaying. Price is what you pay, value is what you receive. And the problem with the house, if you enter into a bidding war, it's not just the fact that you're overpaying, right? So let's say you overpaid by 50,000 for the sake of conversation. Now, what are you going to do in 12 to 18 months when the market itself reduces its value by 20 or 30%? So if it's a $500,000 home, you're now upside down, give or take $300,000, right? Because you overpaid plus what the market damage has done to you. So caution is of extreme importance. And yes, to everybody, happy holidays.
Yeah. And last thing, you guys, let us know in the comment. Thank you, Mitch, by the way, brother. Last thing, guys, in the comment section below, let us know if you like this format. Obviously, this is an hour-long video. Most people are like, don't do anything long, but I mean, there's just so much to cover. You guys, this is going to be chapter, but let us know in the comment section whether or not you want us to keep real estate and the economy, separate. We did both on this video to see if you guys wanted that. Obviously, again, things will be chaptered. We can go to economy and real estate separately, but again, we want to make you guys happy. The more people we can make happy that empower themselves, the better it is because we all win. So again, guys, let us know in the comment section below. And other than that, if you guys are out there investing in real estate or just living your life, you guys already know we wish you luck and we hope you win.